Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, another special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2024. It is Tuesday, July 30th. It is 5:15 Eastern Time. I am Dave Bryan from SteelersDepot.com, and as usual, with me tonight is one Alex Kozora, fresh off of his fifth trip out to Saint Vincent College in Latrobe for the first padded practice of 2024. Alex, happy Tuesday evening. I hope your neck is okay because it had to be going a lot of different directions today.
Most intense day, obviously, the pads coming on a day of first padded practice, first, unfortunately, major injury, the first rain of training camp. You always wait for that rain day, probably going to get a couple more showers throughout the week, but Mike Tomlin embraces the weather. The rain generally held off during practice, a little wet on the drive in and the drive home. So overall, fun day, a lot for us to talk about.
Absolutely. But before doing so, shout out to our sponsor, Touring Plans. Make sure you follow Lynn Testa and get to the site touringplans.com. Tell the folks about Touring Plans. Alex?
For sure. Not a first of them sponsoring our training camp coverage. Touring Plans is the best place to book your upcoming trip to Disney World, Disneyland, or even the Disney Cruise Line. With them, you'll receive access to a crowd calendar to know the days and times when the parks are the busiest or in the least busy, plans to avoid waiting in line for hours, insider restaurant reviews, how to save money on tickets, always important, and tips to have the best experience possible. So if you want the best team to make your trip and experience to Disney the most magical possible, check out Len Testa and touringplans.com. And again, we thank them for their continued support of our Steelers Depot training camp coverage.
Absolutely, we do. Okay, Alex, to the housekeeping first. Russell Wilson back out there in pads, more in a limited capacity. I guess what Mike Tomlin said the other day was true. It felt like Mike Tomlin was meaning that they might start ramping him up a little bit instead of going full force. That it seems like it happened today. I'll let you talk about that. Then also, let's see, no Rodney Williams. He remains sidelined. We have a few transactions to talk about, and probably the most notable thing of the day, Roman Wilson going down with what Mike Tomlin called an ankle injury, and we'll have to wait and see what the status is on that and how long, if any, he'll be sidelined for. Take it away.
Mike Tomlin technically correct when he says Wilson was going to work in team. Wilson got his first reps of team throughout training camp. Only two, though, in both were handoffs, has yet to throw a pass in the team 11-on-11 period. He did work basically almost fully in the individual sessions, didn't do some of the read option drills they were working through, but the straight drop back passing, he did and looked good. Did go through 7-on-7 as well. I did not personally spend time watching that. I was watching the O-line, D-line go one-on-one. So a little disappointed that Wilson didn't do more in team, but he is doing more literally every single day. That's been true throughout training camp, and hopefully that will continue throughout the week. It should. Yeah, Rodney Williams not participating again. Roman Wilson, I saw the play. I didn't realize he had gotten hurt on the play because it was on the right side. It was hard to see the whole that portion of the field in terms of whenever he went off and got checked by the trainer. And I imagine he left pretty quickly because where he got hurt is the exit where the cart can go to take you up. So 7 shots, working on a jet sweep, running left to right, got tackled on the sideline by Anthony Averett, a clean tackle, but kind of wrapped and rolled him down. And I'm assuming in this part that Wilson got his ankle twisted at some point there, and then he left and did not return. I don't know how serious it is. I know the cart can sound serious, but because there's either stairs or a big hill you have to walk up for an ankle injury, just smart out of precaution to let the guy leave on a cart instead of making him walk up. So I just want to point out the cart does not necessarily mean it is a serious injury, although the word cart I know can certainly sound scary. So we'll check on Wilson tomorrow. I don't have any inside knowledge on how serious that injury is. So that's the situation right now. I think TJ Watt kind of got a half day. Not sure if I saw Kalen Barnes in team. He was out there. I don't know if I saw him in the team period, so I'll keep an eye on that for tomorrow. And wide receiver Van Jefferson, who I did not spot Sunday, worked in full Tuesday. So if there was something going on, he's okay now.
All right, and tell the folks about the couple of transactions today.
Yeah, Pittsburgh making their first roster moves of training camp. 2 players cut, 2 players brought in. The players released a couple of veterans. Josiah Scott working third-team slot corner, so that's going to be good news for Beanie Bishop, who continued to work first-team slot corner today. And also Marquez Callaway, the receiver. I thought of all the receivers that could have been released, I wouldn't have guessed Callaway, but he's going to get the axe. Pittsburgh bringing in a tight end for extra depth. As Rodney Williams is on the mend. That's Matt Sokol out of Michigan State. And then Kyler McMichael being brought in as well. I wonder if Josiah Scott kind of asked for the team to give him the heave-ho, kind of seeing the writing on the wall. Because for them to release him and then bring in a DB kind of doesn't make sense.
You know, Monday night when the news broke about Josiah Scott, I brought up the fact that I wonder if a tight end might be brought in. And I think you brought up the fact that you wondered if Josiah Scott might have asked to get out of there. Well, and the reason obviously I brought up the tight end because of Rodney Williams and all, but it feels like both those things.
Yes, they're both right.
both things are true. Cause like you said, hey, if it was going to be a 1-for-1, well, then, okay, maybe Josiah Scott into the line right now and they've seen enough out of him, but to bring in a defensive back to replace him, that does kind of, at least if you put your tinfoil hat on, make it seem like maybe Josiah Scott not happy about place or, running in the lines or whatnot. And I think the addition of the tight end with Rodney Williams down is pretty self-explanatory there. So that's our new Steelers. The new tight end obviously has had a couple of cup of coffee playing in some guy. I think he's gotten elevated a couple of times in the NFL last season with the Patriots, I believe. So you got a guy that's used to being on the grass in NFL circumstances there. So there's going to be a lot of these transactions probably transpire between now and week 1. So, and Callaway is a bit of a surprise. I think I did have a Josiah Scott on my 53-man roster initial prediction, but I did not have Callaway. But Callaway is a guy we talked about quite a bit during the offseason. I wonder if they stopped him before he got on that plane with Roman Wilson going down. But anyway, that's the housekeeping there. Anything else to add before we start getting into the position groups and all?
Just want to mention that Sokol and McMichael did practice in full today. They were going through team period, not a ton of reps, but working right away. So they're hopping right on the moving train at full speed.
All right. Let's start, I guess, with the quarterback position then. And I think you noted on Twitter, probably the best practice or you think it's the best practice that Justin Fields has had to date. Tell us why you think that. And then of the work that Russell Wilson did do or what you did see of it, initial thoughts on him.
For Fields, it was consistency. I'll have to check my charting and my notes and pull the stats. We love our camp stats posted the first 4 days on the site this morning before practice, but I don't believe he threw an incompletion. But just overall, he was efficient. Whether it was 7 shots or in team, he was accurate. The routine things were done routinely. He made some couple of downfield throws to Van Jefferson, a crosser to Darnell Washington, which was like 10 yards downfield. It wasn't an incredible deep shot. So Fields didn't have that go ball that was super pretty today. Didn't attempt it. Defense, I think, took that stuff away. But I know Fields can throw the deep ball. I want to see him do everything else. And I think he was pretty strong there. I think he talked about post-practice still working on cleaning up and being more consistent mechanically. But in terms of the results, I think the results were good in terms of being accurate, efficient, smart with the football, and just moving the offense in the passing game. So I think by far this was his best day, especially in the areas he has to show that he can become a better quarterback and better player in.
All right, and Russell Wilson, and I talked just briefly about him, and I think Kyle Allen had the second thrown interception of camp. Am I correct?
He did, got picked off by Graylin Arnold. I think Allen, while Fields had his best day, Kyle Allen to me had his worst day. Struggled with some accuracy, threw the interception, just not a lot doing with him in the pass game today. With Wilson, again, I didn't watch 7 shots. I heard it was good overall. I'm sure there'll be other reporting out there elsewhere. I was watching O-line, D-line for their first one-on-one opportunity. In terms of team period, again, did not throw the football. It was 2 handoffs, one to Najee Harris and one to Aaron Shamplin, and then he would immediately come off after each of those individual reps. They came in different portions of practice, and some of the warm-ups on air stuff, good velocity. My biggest note with Wilson, it's a small one, but his cadence is very loud, much louder than the other quarterbacks. It is very distinct when you hear him go through his cadence at the line of scrimmage. So that's my only note. Again, did not see the 7-on-7, which is not to the same competition level of 11-on-11, obviously. So we'll watch for it going forward. I'm sure he'll be doing more and more each day, but I don't have a whole lot of on him as a passer today. And there's really not a whole lot to evaluate either.
All right. How about the running back position? And probably the most notable thing with the running backs with the pads on was our first backs on backers drill. You want to walk through some of that, if you will. Take the opportunity at this point. We'll mix the tight ends, I guess, in with that, and then anything that stuck out, in the practice sessions for both those groups.
And in my notes, I have a play-by-play of every single rep of backs on backers.
I don't know how you do that. I just don't know how you do that.
And I have all but one. I'm sorry to say I missed one rep of the O-line, D-line, which I'm mad about because it was the first rep of TJ Watt and
Take a lap.
I will take a lap right now. Me and the offensive lineman. Offensive lineman clean today. No laps for them, so that's good. Backs on backers, yeah. Mike Tomlin said after practice, I agree. The running backs did well. I don't think anyone defensively dominated. There weren't any crazy reps where somebody got flat, and that happened last year, happened most years. The running backs overall really stood their ground. I think in particular, Jaylen Warren had some really good reps and some good battles against Peyton Wilson. Thought Aaron Shamplin had one of the top reps and standing up, a bull rush from Peyton Wilson that got the running backs all amped and cheering for him. So I think the running backs across the board were good. I didn't see anybody that was really a giant liability. Najee had some good reps. Warren's always good in this drill, always shines and shows no fear. But Shamplin's got kind of that squatty body in a similar vein to Warren, did well as well. So I think the running backs, in terms of the run period, didn't see a whole lot from them. I think the defense really took care of and dominated the run period, the live tackling sessions. But I think in backs on backers, the running backs, the offense won the day.
All right, and talk about the tight end group in a similar fashion now, especially one Darnell Washington.
Darnell Washington picking it up. He did well in backs on backers. Not perfect. Herbig got him on a rip move one time, but overall he was steering, moving upfield and being able to anchor and not get pushed around. Obviously with his size, utilizing his length against speed rushes, so he won most of his reps and then caught his first pass in the team period on a crosser that I mentioned earlier from Fields against Patrick Queen. That with some decent yak. It was on a live session, so there is no tackling, but still. Got a step on Patrick Queen off the line and had leverage and made a nice hands catch. So we're seeing Washington pick things up. It's more in my notes and more involvement, more activity the last 2 practices. That's encouraging. Hopefully that continues going forward. Other than that, I think Pruitt did okay in backs on backers. Frymuth won 1 rep, lost 1 rep. Connor, I don't know if I have many notes on Connor Hayward today. He continues to work Russell Wilson. I think he had a catch in 7-on-7. I believe Russell Wilson said then after practice they were, or Hayward was, of course, running routes and Wilson throwing it to him. So Wilson's talked up Connor Hayward a lot throughout this process, and I think they have pretty good chemistry.
All right, let's move on to the wide receiver group, and obviously highlighted by Roman Wilson going down and Van Jefferson being more visible today. And another highlight today, George Pickens doing George Pickens thing, I believe, in 7 shots, a nice one-handed grab on it looked like a fade against Joey Porter Jr. Add to that setup.
That's really what it is. So it was Pickens making the great catch in 7 shots, just a jump ball, go ball from Fields to Pickens. It was nice touch on it, outside shoulder where Pickens could make the play or nobody's going to make the play. And Pickens, of course, made the play. So good rep there. Outside of that, I did not watch receiver DB one-on-one because that's the same time as backs on backers. And you got to watch backs on backers. You only do it twice per camp, today and then Friday Night Lights. And so that's always the marquee 5-star event. I don't think it didn't sound like anything crazy happened in receiver DBs. You can kind of hear the crowd react to it. They're more engaged. They're watching it. I didn't really catch anything there. So I don't have a whole lot of notes on that session in terms of the team period stuff. Nothing really stuck out. Once Wilson went down, it is still a muddied mess. I think, Calvin Austin has done okay, but I don't think he's been particularly great in the team periods, and, some misconnections intended for Scotty Miller today. And Jefferson was out there and had a catch downfield against Porter, so that was good. But it's still a group to me that has not really separated themselves, especially once Wilson went down. Wilson was the guy that was picking up steam. He leaves in 7 shots, and the rest of the group to me was pretty quiet.
I did see a one-on-one from those DB versus wide receiver session there of Calvin Austin against Beanie Bishop Jr. and thought Calvin did a good job of getting on top and stacking him and made a nice catch down the field there. Now, it's just obviously one rep, but that at least did stick out to me as far as clips from I guess that particular part of practice.
That's good. I know those guys have been battling. Obviously, they're going to see each other a lot. Calvin is playing outside a little bit, but he's been primarily in the slot, and Bishop's been your first team slot corner. So those are good matchups to make those guys better. Obviously, that drill is slanted heavily towards the receiver, but still, it's good to see the rep. Anything positive from Austin, still with plenty to prove, is always going to be notable. But yeah, I just did not watch that portion of practice, unfortunately.
Quez Watkins giving the effort on some blocking, right?
I think it was Van Jefferson. Jefferson had the block on Jonathan Ward. Yeah.
Okay. I thought it read Quez Watkins. My apologies.
I didn't write it wrong.
Who is the big winner with Callaway, at least out of there for he might be on his way back to the facility for all we know right now. But who's the big winner with him out of the way now?
I don't know if there's a big winner because it wasn't like Callaway was running, on a high level of snaps. I mean, maybe you got a bit more reps for the other guys, Jacob Copeland, and, I'm sure Quez Watkins might be getting additional reps, but I don't know if there was really a winner in that sense of it. I mean, I still think Jefferson and Austin and Pickens, especially with Wilson out for now. Again, I no idea how long it'll be. Probably I would be pretty surprised if he practiced tomorrow, but I'm not going to speculate on the nature of the injury, the timetable there. So again, I just kind of go back to my default of these guys are still battling, and I'm not seeing a ton of separation in terms of guys that are really cementing their case, but we're 5 days in and there's still going to be a big process to this whole thing. So I know there's a long game and long view to it, but to me, this group is still pretty muddied.
All right, offensive line with the pads on. You paid more attention to them on one-on-one. What did you see there, and what did you see when it came to the team? The team sessions.
Biggest takeaways, especially in the one-on-one session, I thought Fautanu, he didn't win every rep. I think Watt got him on the first rep, but I didn't get a chart in a great start to finish view of it. But at the next two, they went together, and I think Fautanu held his own. He didn't overset, and he was able to mirror and, good hand use. And I would say he won the next 2 reps against TJ Watt. He lost one later to, I think, Kyron Johnson. But, overall, I think he gets out of his stance quickly. He's got good hand placement. He's got a good punch overall. So that was good to see him look like a first-round offensive attack, first-round pick. I thought Zach Frazier struggled some with power, and Montravius Adams getting under his pads, and Adams beat him on back-to-back reps. So just moments in time, but I think Frazier did not have the best and cleanest time in the one-on-one today. In the team period, trying to think back, I mean, I don't know if the line got a tremendous push with the way the defense seemed to win the session, so I don't know if there were any major standouts there, but I don't know if I have a particular takeaway from the team period. I'll try to have more notes on that for tomorrow.
All right, give me a Dylan Cook update.
Yeah, still second team left tackle. He did fine. Didn't get a ton of reps in the one-on-one today. I think he won both of his reps against, he won against Jeremiah Moon but still running second team left tackle. And I think he's having a good camp. Nothing that's standing out in a super positive way. I may have missed it, but in my notes, I just think he's done a nice job.
All right, and no real change, no changes as far as the groupings go, right? And how many first team reps did Fautano get today?
He got one in the last play in 7 shots because it was tied 3-3, and so they bring a lot of the first teamers in, Justin Fields, etc. And then Fautano came in. He took it, and Jones came off the field. It was Dan Moore Jr. at left tackle, so it's kind of curious how Jones has kind of missed out on a couple of reps there. I don't think he got other first team reps unless someone tweeted it and I missed it, but I know he got that one in 7 shots.
All right. Anything else to add about the offensive line after the first practice? And once again, we'll reiterate this a lot. We're going to get a much better look at offensive line, defensive line once the preseason games get underway, especially when we get copies of the all 22 there. But anything else to add about the offensive line?
Again, I'm just happy they were cleaner from a pre-snap procedure standpoint, and that was an issue really over the weekend and especially on Sunday. And so I'm glad that got cleaned up after the off day. Maybe you'll kind of get a little bit of rest on Monday and you're feeling more energized for Tuesday and you're in pads and kind of more focused because it feels more like football. Thought Mason McCormick and Isaiah Loudermilk had good battles in the one-on-one situation. I had McCormick winning 2-1. I think it was Loudermilk with a push-pull on the first rep to win. Second one, McCormick won as Loudermilk couldn't rip. They go again. Anytime it's tied 1-1, they want to go a third time, have a winner, have a loser. And McCormick anchored well against Loudermilk's bull rush. And so that was good to see from McCormick to show that strength that we know that he has.
All right, let's flip over to the defensive line, kind of in the same vein there. And Leal, we've mentioned his name a lot early on. The pads are on now. Did Leal stick out in this first day in pads?
Nothing that stuck out in my notes, but I'm always hesitant because sometimes you lose the individual play and the mess of bodies that can happen in the team period sometimes. He looked quick, though, in one-on-one. I don't know if he had any particular rep that was amazing, but you still see the quickness there. So we'll keep watching that going forward. Cam Hayward's still strong as an ox. He was given some long arms and bull rushes to Saymalu in the one-on-one period, and was given. I mean, Saymalu held on and anchored, but was getting pushed back, and I think there were competitive battles between a couple of veterans and Hayward and Saymalu. Go back to Montravius Adams looking really good on Zach Frazier, working him over on back-to-back reps in that one-on-one period. So Adams, should be this backup nose tackle. I don't know exactly what kind of role he's going to have. I mean, obviously it's backup nose. How many snaps will that lend you? Will he rotate in some nickel packages? We'll have to see. But I thought Adams had a nice practice today.
All right, tell me something about Keanu Benton for today.
Let me see the reps that I had on him one-on-one. Couple of good hand-fighting reps between him and Nate Herbig. The first one, Herbig won as Benton tried to swim, and that didn't work. And then he spun late, and Herbig was able to mirror the next one. It was pretty close to a stalemate. Benton ripped through late, and that's basically all the notes that I have on him today. Again, I have to assume just with how well the defense did in the run period that the D-line and the whole front seven did a nice job. So and it's not specific to Benton, but I'm guessing his and his general teammates' play was probably pretty good on that side of the ball.
All right. How about edge rushers, outside linebacker?
Let's see. Again, the backs on backers a little disappointing overall. I thought Jeremiah Moon had a couple of good reps. He loves that inside spin. He's using that one all the time to varying degrees of success, but it's certainly a tool in his tool belt. He can probably try to pull off on some unsuspecting tackle in the preseason who's not studying you and doesn't know your game too well. David Perales was getting a couple extra reps today with TJ Watt, I think, kind of having a half day, and so that allowed Nick Herbig to kick up to some first team reps. And so second team, it was Moon still, and then a little bit more David Perales. So good for him to get additional time. In backs on backers, not a ton from the edge guys, unfortunately. Moon did have a nice bull rush on Pat Freiermuth, and so good under his chest and uprighted him. You certainly can see the power and the length that he has will be assets as a pass rusher.
All right, let's move inside to the inside linebacker position. Patrick Queen in backs on backers.
Yeah, Queen, he only had a couple of reps. He lost to Warren on the first one. Let me check here. Queen, I think, was trying to do a little hesitation move and then was a little late to try to turn the power, and Warren shut that down pretty quickly. They went again. Queen straight bull, had a good impact on Warren, and they kind of both went to the ground on that rep. Peyton Wilson disappointed me a little bit in the backs on backers. He was a little too finesse, a little too reliant on the spin move, had to use it probably 3 different times, sometimes as the initial rush, sometimes as the counter off of it. Had a really big just kind of car crash the last rep between him and Jalen Warren. I think Warren won the rep, but it was just kind of fun to see those guys just, Wilson full speed into Warren, who held his ground and stood him up, and they were kind of, I think, jawing a little bit right after that, and then they high-fived each other. So that was a really fun, competitive rep, but I thought Wilson would look a little bit better in that backs on backers drill.
I'm sure he'll get a chance to redeem himself Friday night, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm not concerned overall, but it's his first time, probably kind of getting familiar with how things work, and the running backs, to the credit, just did a good job when you're facing Jalen Warren. That they're putting probably the best guy in backs on backers and Warren on Wilson. So you're kind of, understand the context of who you're going against. Although, like I said earlier, Shamplin had a good rep against Peyton as well. In the run session, the team period, Jacoby Windman made some plays in the backfield. So that was good. I think some of the inside linebackers were getting penetration, and Woodman on at least 2 occasions was either close to making the tackle for loss or did make the TFL.
All right, let's move on to the defensive backs as a whole. And obviously, Josiah Scott no longer in the picture. I imagine Beanie Bishop still benefiting with some first-team reps. And what'd you see from the defensive backs today?
The biggest name that stuck out to me, and again, I did not watch them in the one-on-one, so I have less information here than I do the other spots because I really wanted to watch some of the trench guys more because I hadn't been able to learn as much about them. But Graylin Arnold making the plays, had the interception. Kyle Allen rolled to his right, tried to hit, I think it was Watkins in the right flat, and Arnold did a nice job to basically muscle and wrestle the ball away from Watkins underneath and just took the ball away. So he had a breakup in Sunday's practice, a pick today. Really going to be the second team slot corner now that Scott is out of the picture. Bishop's still running first team, but I think Arnold has been able to make some more plays and come on stronger the last 2 practices.
As far as physicality goes overall in these practices, in the first padded one, it's padded. What was the level of tackling? I mean, there were no live tackling sessions, right?
No, there were.
Oh, okay.
There was 7 shots was live.
Okay.
The third team period was live, which is the run session. Typically, the second team period is live as well, but they didn't do it. They went to the third one, but there were, 2 live sessions today.
Okay. All right. How would you describe the physicality of that, the level?
I mean, it was there. I would, on a scale of 1 to 10, based on, past practices, and especially first padded practices, on the lower end, I think maybe a 6 or a 7. I've definitely seen more physical and intense practices. Sometimes just, how it goes. One particular rep maybe sticks out in my head or not. Backs on backers was not. It's physical for sure. And Pittsburgh's practices are known for being the most physical. Most teams do not do live tackling at all. Most teams will just have thud tackling or wrap tackling, where you're going to just tag the guy, wrap him up, and then you're not going to go to the ground. You want guys to stay on their feet to avoid injury risk. But Pittsburgh will, go old school, and not every session is live. The passing sessions really aren't, but the run sessions are. And so there was certainly a level of physicality, but I think I've seen a little more intensity in past practices. Do want to note with Peyton Wilson, in team period, there was a good completion from, I think it was Fields to Des Fitzpatrick for a good gain for the offense. But Wilson, it's like, remember the, I think it was a Notre Dame game last year where Wilson came screaming from behind the play and tracked whoever it was down.
Right.
Kind of did that to Fitzpatrick and tracked him down. Fitzpatrick was slowing down to try to make a move on somebody, but Wilson just came in from behind and hit him just really hard, real big impact here. It's probably one of the biggest hits of practice that I was able to see. So that was notable, the hit power, the closing speed from Wilson in space. You're trying to make a play downfield after reception by a receiver. But yeah, to answer your question, physical for sure, but probably not the most physical practice I've ever seen in Pittsburgh.
All right. Tell me about Darius Rush.
Yeah, nothing that stuck out in a super notable way. Still getting the second team reps today. He's had good practices. So just for him, for a young guy, second year guy like him, spent half the year last year in Pittsburgh to get all these reps, to consistently run second team. I think Anthony Averett was getting additional reps today. Again, I don't recall seeing Kalen Barnes in the team period. I'll watch for that tomorrow. Don't have any particular note on Rush, but to get those reps each day is just a really good opportunity for him.
Okay, I guess we should go to some special teams. They're starting to work on that new kickoff rule, right?
They are. And just a note, safety, I don't have a whole lot to note safety, to be honest. And again, so many of these guys are known. Casey did have a nice stop. I think Elliott and Casey were good in 7 shots and making some goal line stops. Casey had a really good squeeze on. I think it was, let me double check who it was. I want to say Warren, but I want to make sure I'm right here. Let me just check. It was Jonathan Ward. It was running back Jonathan Ward, and Casey had the goal line stop, and he was amped up as he should be for that. Yeah, special teams, they're working on kickoffs for the first time today, but it was just very piecemeal. It was just kind of the initial, the frontline blockers for the kick return team was the emphasis today in terms of their technique. And are they going to do a drop technique, which is basically turn and run back 5 yards and then turn around and get square and be ready to block? Or will you use a slide technique, which is basically kind of a shuffle to get your body into position? You're not getting the depth you are on the drop technique. So that's what Danny Smith was really emphasizing today. There were no kicks. There were no kick returners unless Christian Kuntz and Matthew Wright are returners. They were in the landing zone to mimic the look of it all. But that was the first initial look of Danny Smith. He was working with these guys. He was telling them, we have to use the drop technique or use the slide technique. I want to see you do both so I know which you're better at. So I think the message, the takeaway is the techniques could be different for each man based on their skills, their ability, as they try to figure out how the kickoffs will look under these new rules.
All right, walk our listeners through 7 shots.
Yeah, fun session today. Offense won 4-2-3, and so they're eating good tonight. Winners get the good food, and the losers do not. First one was a gun run to Najee Harris, off right guard, plowing ahead over goal line, kind of falling into Patrick Queen and kind of carrying and stumbling into him into the end zone. Second one was the George Pickens one-handed snag. Pittsburgh in 13 personnel. Pickens the lone receiver. Fields a kind of one-step drop, put the ball up, and Pickens made the play. Third one was Jalen Warren, carry right side. He was stopped at the 1-yard line. Beanie Bishop and Deshaun Elliott, 2 of the many Steelers defenders in on the stop. Fourth one, 21 personnel with Coletto in at fullback. Najee Harris, left side, untouched, into the end zone, bounced it out gap, and scored without much resistance. There was good blocking up front by the offensive line. The fifth play was the one I mentioned earlier, Casey tackling and stopping Jonathan Ward at the half-yard line or so, and other teammates joined him as well. The sixth one was the jet run to Roman Wilson, where he got hurt. It was a nice open field stop by Anthony Averett, so I know the focus is on Wilson, but credit to Averett for the good tackle in space. And so they're tied at 3. The starting offense comes back in, and that was Justin Fields on a read option, which he did a couple times today and showed off his speed, and he scored. And so the offense wins off of that 4-2-3.
All right, what's the best thing you saw today? What's the thing what's your biggest thing you saw today?
I mean, from an individual play, the Pickens catch, although it's not surprising to us at this point, right, to fans, because he's done it so many times, but that just is always a play you take for granted because he makes it look so routine, when if anyone else does, it's like the highlight of their summer. But I think just in general, the collective group of the running backs to do well in backs on backers, the drill is slanted towards the defense. It's a tough spot for the backs to be in. They're absorbing the linebacker who has a full head of steam, a 2-way go. There's no real there isn't a pocket, and you kind of rush for 3, 4, 5 seconds, and you're asked to try to stand up and finish out the rep. I think the backs did a nice job there. And again, I was really happy with Justin Fields' play. I think he was consistent and accurate and smart with the football and doing some of the things he struggled to do the first 4 practices. So to see him, I don't want to say take that step, but at least take that step in this practice, hopefully continue that, was impressive and encouraging to see.
All right, what things are you looking forward to seeing tomorrow that maybe you didn't get a chance to pay attention to today? Will you be able to pay more attention to the wide receiver DB drills, perhaps?
Probably. I assume, they won't do backs on backers tomorrow. At least I wouldn't expect them to. So they'll probably do some coverage drills, linebackers against tight ends and safeties on tight ends and those types of things, running backs against linebackers, one-on-one is my guess. So yeah, I'll probably watch some more coverage stuff tomorrow and then just keep watching the trenches, maybe try to see a bit more in team action, but things can happen so fast and there's a mess of bodies around. It can be tough to evaluate, truth be told, but we'll do our best and be out there tomorrow.
All right, and obviously we'll be paying attention to what happens with Roman Wilson if he's able to, hope, it doesn't sound like he'll be able to go, but stranger things have happened. Players been able to get out there. The biggest hope right now is just not sidelined for an extended period of time. We'll wait and see if there's any other transactions Wednesday morning. Long week here, right, Alex? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday here. So we're going to be talking quite a bit. So anybody or, players that maybe we haven't covered specifically today, we'll try to, I always try to make a habit of getting Alex to talk about maybe someone that we haven't talked a lot about so far through the practices there. So just an ebb and flow of this thing. People that have listened to this over the years, have kind of know the routes that we take with this and all. So anything else to get to before we get out of here, Alex?
Do want to shout out Julius Welshoff. Not a ton of reps, but he had a tackle for loss today. I think he kind of came in on block, but still, he was a little active in the run session. Didn't get many reps in the O-line, D-line. I think he got a rep or two, but do want to note the German undrafted free agent for making a couple plays in the team period.
All right. You and I will be getting together in a few more hours from now to record the Wednesday morning episode of the Terrible Podcast. And then that will go up bright and early in the morning. And then you and I will be back at it with another special edition of the podcast Wednesday afternoon, probably around this time, which once again, we started recording this at about 5:15 Eastern time. So whatever that time frame is, we should match on Wednesday. So in the meantime, as always, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you'd like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button and follow the directions that way. So until the next show, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast, a special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2024 with Dave and Alex.